Good evening, and I'd like to welcome everyone. I'm Sohn, the president of the board of directors of the World Affairs Council, and I'd like to welcome you all to this very, very important event. Thank you all for being here and wanting to engage with the world in what we do. Tonight's special because all the proceeds benefit refugees who fled from Ukraine into Poland. All of you here tonight and watching at home are making a difference. The World Affairs Council of Connecticut has been around since 1924, a long time. And the World Affairs Council of the United States is roughly 500,000 members. And, you know, we can't thank you enough for your support, educating the general public about global events. And tonight we have World Affairs Councils from all over the country joining us, including Western Mass, Stamford, Connecticut. This is a long list, so bear with me. Dallas, Santa Fe, New Mexico, New Jersey, Maine, El Paso, Philadelphia, Houston, Jacksonville, San Antonio, Kentucky and Southern Indiana, Columbus, Ohio, Tacoma, Northwest Ohio, Cincinnati, and New Hampshire. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. I also want to thank our sponsors tonight who helped make this event happen. Chuck Regan. Someone wrote Charles, but he's Chuck Regan. The Chase family, Anthony Viscoliosi, the Dodd Center for Human Rights, Infinity Hall, Bears Restaurants, and Associated Construction. Please give them a big round of applause. I also want to thank the board of directors of the World Affairs Council who've supported us tremendously in so many ways. If you could just stand briefly and you can all acknowledge them and give them a round of applause, that would be tremendous. Yeah. Yeah. You know, and we have some past presidents of the World Affairs Council here tonight with us as well. Greg Boyko and Alex Coral. If you can give them a round of applause, that would be amazing. This is usually around the time that the spotlights go on them, but you know, everyone's out of practice, so give them a break, right? And last but not least, I want to thank two Ukrainian refugees that are here with us tonight. Dasha and Simon that are here with one of our board members, Dana Buchin. If you could stand up, please. And we can give both of them a tremendous round of applause. You know, thank you so much for coming to our beautiful country. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Anthony Viscoliosi, one of our esteemed board members, to introduce our guest of honor. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you.
Thank you, Sim, for those comments. May I engage you with 4 words: faith, radishes, lunatic, and demolition. 4 important words that our guest of honor tonight has communicated in many ways through his actions. Faith is courage to believe in his religion and to believe in his ability to change the world. Radishes were those critics, he called, who were only communists that were red on the outside. Lunatic was the word that they used to describe him because he thought that only with leaflets he could topple communism when they had nuclear missiles still in their silos. And demolition. He led the demolition of the old order through the implementation of liberty and democracy. He did this with the power of the people behind him. So much so that as a simple electric worker in the Gdansk shipyard, he created and led a movement that changed the world and changed the country of Poland. In 1989, his solidarity movement won 99 seats out of 100 in the Polish Senate. And in that same year, because of his actions and those of many others, the Berlin Wall came down. And in 1991, the Soviet Union ceased to exist. As a sponsor of tonight's event, I couldn't be in a better place this single moment in my life. I have this incredible privilege to introduce to you a man that as a young boy became my hero because of what I saw him do. And he inspired not only the generation of Poles that changed the world, but he inspired so many of us around the world for his great and incredible achievements that came through his faith, through his courage, through his perseverance. Tonight, our guest of honor will be in conversation with the World Affairs Council CEO, Megan Tory. And also joining our guest of honor is his translator, Magdalena. The proceeds, as Sim said, he is donating to use to benefit the incredible critical humanitarian crisis that is existing in Poland today because of the refugee movement of more than 3 million people from the Ukraine into Poland. And Mr. Wałęsa, President Wałęsa, is helping in this effort. Mr. President, I am a faithful admirer of your courage, fortitude, and perseverance under the most difficult of circumstances. You are a hero, not only to me, but to us all. Mr. President, welcome back to the state of Connecticut.
Postaram się pana nie zawieść.
I hope I will not deceive you and disappoint you.
Ale szanowni państwo, zanim wejdziemy do tematu, pozwólcie mi na krótki tekst.
But before we proceed to the main speech, allow me for a very short intervention.
Na tym terenie poznałem wspaniałego człowieka, David Chase.
It is in Connecticut that I got to know a wonderful individual, that is David Chase.
Nie zdążyłem mu podziękować za życie.
I didn't get enough time during his lifetime to thank him for what he did.
Więc dziś chciałem mu się pokłonić i podziękować za to, że go znałem.
So let me now take advantage of this opportunity and really send my great respect and thank the Providence for the fact that I had the opportunity to know this great man.
Jeśli kogokolwiek poznałem wielkiego, to właśnie był David Chelsea. Pierwsze miejsce w mojej życiorysce zajmuje.
And I must admit that among the people that I have met worldwide, David Chase is really at the leading position of the greatest individuals.
A teraz do rzeczy.
And now to the point of this meeting.
Jak zapewne wiecie, mój okręg życia dobija do 80 roku.
As you may all be aware, my boat is reaching the age of 80.
Miałem intensywne życie, tak jak intensywne życie miał mój kraj.
I actually led a very tense life, a very tough life, as tensely and as toughly as my country did.
Przez całą historię mieliśmy kłopoty z Rosją.
Throughout all our history, we have had troubles with Russia.
I dziś mamy kłopoty.
And today, Russia constitutes trouble again.
Ale naszemu pokoleniu los dał dwa wielkie zadania.
But the Providence has given two major tasks to our generation.
Jedno zadanie wykonaliśmy. Usunąć maksymalnie dużo przeszkód, podziałów niepotrzebnych świata.
And we succeeded in accomplishing this first task, that is eliminate the barriers, the divisions, and eradicate the evil in the world.
Podziały na bloki przeciwstawne.
And when I mean divisions, it's the divisions into antagonistic
Granice
blocks,
między państwami.
borders, frontiers between countries,
Układ Warszawski.
The Warsaw Pact,
Związek Radziecki.
the Soviet Union,
Zjednoczenie Niemiec.
the reunification of Germany.
Tego wspólnie dokonaliśmy.
And these are all the accomplishments
Ale
of
ro-
us all, we all contributed.
Ale robiliśmy po to, by uruchomić nowy, lepszy świat, większe bezpieczeństwo.
And we were doing it mainly for a safer, more secure world to be created and to open up the opportunities for this new world.
Pozostały dwa jeszcze zadania, które trzeba dokończyć.
Unfortunately, two tasks still remain to be accomplished.
Pierwsze, Rosja w starej epoce.
The first, to deal with Russia, who represents the remnant of the old era.
A drugie, Chinom pomóc, by weszli na podobną drogę, w jakiej my jesteśmy.
And the second, to help China readjust to the track along which we have been moving.
I te zadania Polska nie może wykonać.
And unfortunately, these are the tasks that Poland alone cannot address.
W Europie powinno wziąć się za to Niemcy przede wszystkim,
And I believe in Europe, it should be Germany who should be leading the implement or the fulfillment of these
a w
tasks.
świecie Stany Zjednoczone.
And in the world, it should be the United States being
Proszę.
the leader.
Proszę was, weźcie się za wykorzystanie szansy.
So here is my appeal to you, United States, take advantage of the opportunity that has been given to us.
Jeśli nie chcecie, oddajcie swój potencjał Polsce, my będziemy wiedzieli, co z tym zrobić.
If you don't want to handle and address these issues, give your potential to Poland. We will know how to put it to good use.
Oddaję się pani do dyspozycji.
And I'm in your hands now.
Well, this certainly is an
Okay.
extraordinary opportunity. I'm going to talk just quickly about format. We're going to do a little bit of moderated Q&A. We're going to talk about what's happening today with the war in Ukraine, a little bit about the region, and a little bit about what's happening in Poland right now. And then maybe we'll hit on the fragility of democracy. I want everyone in the audience to make use of those cards. We want your questions. We're going to do about half and half questions and then half Q&A. So you ready?
Proszę panią,
So the questions come after, yes?
Yeah, so
yeah,
we'll have written questions and the team is going to bring them.
proszę panią, ja tu sprzątam.
I'm just the cleaner here, so you're the boss, okay? Powiedziała, że teraz może pan powiedzieć, a pytania będą w drugiej połowie. Dobrze?
Jeszcze pani mi
Let's do
oddaje
it.
głos.
So you give me the floor again, yes?
Yeah.
Więc w tych zadaniach z Rosją i z tym walką o jedną epokę trzeba wykonać dwa zadania.
So I believe we've got two things to do if we want to address Russia as our problem, as our challenge, and it entering the new era.
Pierwsze zadanie, musimy maksymalnie pomóc tym biednym ludziom na Ukrainie, bo oni giną i z głodu, i z walce.
For the first thing, we have to assist in this humanitarian crisis in Ukraine and assist the people who are dying because of fighting going on there and because of hunger and that they have been afflicted with.
A więc wszelkiego typu zbiórki po to, by im pomóc, aby przeżyli.
So we have to do all we can and raise all the possible funds in order to assist the people, to help them survive this crisis, this humanitarian
I
crisis.
drugie zadanie, zrobić wreszcie porządek z Rosją.
But there is one track. The other track is to give the final blow and put the right order in Russia, finally.
Nie wystarczy, że Ukraina pokona Rosję, to za mało.
At this point, I perceive that it's not enough for Ukraine to defeat Russia militarily.
Ona za 5 lat, maksymalnie za 10, znów się Rosja podniesie i znów zagroży światu.
So unless we really put the right order in Russia, Russia will rise again within 5 to 10 years and will constitute a threat to the rest of the world again.
Rosja jest za duża gabarytowo i ma fatalny system polityczny.
Russia is just too huge a country, and the political system which rules there is terrible.
Jeden człowiek, Stalin, Breżniew, a teraz Putin, może zagrozić bezpieczeństwo świata całego.
With the system it has had in place, a single individual, Lenin, Stalin before, Brezhnev before, and now Putin, can cause this terrible threat to the world.
Putin popełnił błąd. Uruchomił cały świat, a teraz świat powinien doprowadzić do porządku Rosję.
But this time Putin has made a mistake, a major error. Somehow he inspired the whole world to unite and oppose Russia. And I think it's a great opportunity for the world to really give the final blow to Russia.
W demokracji nie może być więcej jak 2 kadencje z wyboru.
We must not allow in a democratic system for an individual running a country for more than 2 terms of office.
Bo kryminały się tworzą, zagrożenia świata.
Because if they stay in power for longer, they create mafias. It's a terribly crime-prone system.
A więc ONZ i cały świat musi wymusić zmianę systemu politycznego.
So the United Nations and the world must force Russia to introduce changes to its political system.
Jeśli to się nie uda, jest drugi pomysł, mój.
And if we fail doing this, I have another idea.
Rosja składa się z co najmniej 60 narodów, kiedyś państw.
And we should go along this other way. Russia is now composed of around 60 different peoples, which used to be independent republics, countries before.
Oni te państwa przywłaszczyli sobie, wykończyli kadrę i zrusyfikowali.
Russia just absorbed these republics, eliminated their elites, their leaders, and russified them.
Musimy pomóc tym narodom powstać, aby Rosję rozdzielić.
We must help, assist these peoples rise against Russia, motivate them to fight for the disintegration of Russia.
To i dla Rosji jest to potrzebne.
This will work to the benefit of Russia itself.
Ile Rosjan ginęło przez historię właśnie przez złe rządzenie.
So many Russian people have been killed, have been dying over the centuries because of their bad political system.
Więc pomóżmy Rosji normalnie żyć jak inne kraje, jak my żyjemy.
So let us help Russia introduce a regular, normal system that is adopted elsewhere that will allow the Russian people to live normal
I
lives.
pod te zadania Stany powinny organizować świat.
And I think the United States should be really trying to identify the institutions that might, in the world, that might really address these issues.
Wystarczy czy jeszcze?
Is that enough as an introduction, or would you like some more?
That was great. So just sort of, absolutely. So I know we're sort of geographically far from what's happening in Ukraine, but we can see it on our TV every day, the horror that is happening. And we know that I think at this point, about 3 million refugees have fled just into Poland. I know we have our consul general here from Romania. They're accepting a lot of refugees. And you've only been in the US, I think, just over a week. Can you describe to us what it's like to be on the ground in Poland right now? To see all of this firsthand?
No przecież, no to możemy sobie, każdy może wyobrazić sobie, 3 miliony ludzi, przede wszystkim kobiet i dzieci, no przyjechało do Polski bez uprzedzenia.
Well, I think it's really hard to imagine, but just think 3 million people, mainly women and children, totally unexpectedly, in an unplanned way, have arrived into Poland.
Oddaliśmy mieszkania, żywność, no wszystko, podzieliliśmy się wszystkim.
People have really shared everything they had, apartments, accommodations, food. Well, we have shared everything with entirely compassionate.
A z tego, co widać, to nie koniec. Jeszcze będą przybywać.
And from what we can see right now, this is not the end to this crisis as yet, and there will be more people coming.
Podzielimy się wszystkim, czym mamy.
We will certainly continue sharing with those refugees everything that we can.
Ale to jest te pierwsze zadanie.
But as I was saying, this is the day-to-day challenge we have to face, and this is the first
A
task.
drugie zadanie, usunąć wreszcie te problemy, które Rosja stwarza.
But the second task is to finally eradicate the problems caused by Russia.
Tylko solidarnie możemy tego dokonać.
And only in solidarity, if we stand united, we can accomplish it.
Od naszej solidarności zależy, jak temu narodowi pomożemy, a jednocześnie jak skończymy hegemonię rosyjską.
So it will depend on how united we will stand, only on that, how we can assist the Ukrainian people on the one hand, and on the other, how to really eradicate the problem that Russia causes.
Rozwój cywilizacji świata pomaga nam.
The technological advancements assist us a lot.
I dziś świat się podzielił. Ten nowoczesny, który walczy pokojowo argumentacją, i ten wsteczny rosyjski i chiński, który metodami starymi walczy.
And today's world is divided into two zones, I would say. One is the Western civilized world that resorts to peaceful means, to negotiations, to talks and debates. And the other is Russia and China, who remain within the old strategies of using force and violence.
Pierwszy etap wygraliśmy, postaraliśmy się o drugi.
And as we have eliminated a lot of divisions of the old world successfully, let us now try to accomplish the second task and finish the second stage.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening in Poland, because you talked a little bit about, you said the word divisions, and we know that just like here in the United States, where we're politically divided, there are some political divisions in Poland. Can you talk a little bit about, where the solidarity movement stands today?
Gdzie jest dzisiaj ruch Solidarności?
Szanowni Państwo, trzeba zawsze zrozumieć epokę, w której przyszło nam żyć.
Well, we need to understand each time the realities of the times in which we are living.
Polska walczyła i dzisiaj widać, że najlepszy system jest oparty na trójpodziale władz.
Poland fought for that, and today we continue seeing that the best political system in a country is based on the separation of powers.
Władza ustawodawcza,
The legislative power,
wykonawcza,
executive power,
sądownictwo niezależne.
and the judiciary.
To trzeba zapisać w konstytucji.
And these
Could be making the
separations
next
of
question.
powers should be written down in the provisions of the constitutions. And this T-shirt actually reads Konstytucja, which is constitution.
Cała ta walka zakończyła się sukcesem w Polsce.
In Poland, we were successful. We won what we wanted.
Dzisiaj jest łamana ta zasada w Polsce.
However, in Poland, the separation of powers and the constitutions have been violated by our authorities.
Dlatego noszę wciąż tą koszulkę i będę nosił, aż przestaną łamać tę zasadę.
And that's why I've been wearing this, not the same, the T-shirt. Ja powiedziałam, że nie tę samą koszulkę, tylko the T-shirt reading Constitution until they stop violating the Constitution.
Do Stanów wziąłem 10 koszulek takich.
Yeah, I brought 10 T-shirts on my trip, so don't worry, it's
Natomiast,
one every day,
ale
fresh one every day.
ale co ja mówię dla Ameryki, dla świata, tą koszulką.
But there is a message that I want to send to the to American people as well and the world while wearing this T-shirt.
Najlepszy system na dzisiaj jest oparty na trójpodziale władz.
That there is no better system than that based on the separation of powers,
Zapisany w konstytucjach.
written down in constitutions,
Sąd niezależny pilnuje, czy to dotrzymujemy.
independent independent courts controlling all the other powers,
A niezależna prasa pisze o tym, jak się zachowujemy.
and the free media controlling everything and revealing if anything goes wrong.
Nie lekceważcie demokracji.
And the message here is do not underestimate democracy.
Chodźcie na wybory.
Participate in the elections,
Bo
vote.
Polska zlekceważyła i dopuściła populistów i demagogów.
Because in Poland, we underestimated this right to vote and we allowed populists and demagogues to come to power.
I w Stanach też Trumpa dopuściliście podobnie.
In the United States, I think you allowed Trump to win power as well.
I dlatego proszę was, pilnujcie demokracji.
That's why, please, make sure that you abide by democracy and you control
Bo
it.
ten mój dzielny naród nie może sobie teraz poradzić z tymi demagogami i populistami.
Because looking at the example of Poland, the brave Polish people cannot really get rid of those demagogues and populists right now.
Jak wy dopuścicie demagogów, populistów, koniec ze świata.
And if by any chance you allow demagogues and populists come to power in this country, that will be the end to the world.
A teraz, jeszcze jedna uwaga, solidarność.
Okay, you mentioned solidarity and that's what you wanted.
Musicie zrozumieć filozofię solidarności.
You need to understand what solidarity as the movement was based on.
Solidarność była możliwa w tamtych czasach,
Solidarność was possible back then
bo mieliśmy wspólny mianownik.
because we had the common denomination,
Związek Sowiecki i komunizm.
which was we all shared one thing, that is we opposed communism and the Soviet Union.
Jedni kochali Związek Radziecki, komunizm, inni nie kochali.
There were some who loved communism and the Soviet Union, the others did not.
Ale to był wspólny mianownik.
But there was one thing we had in common.
W licznikach mieliśmy różne interesy.
But on top of this, we had totally different interests.
Jak rozwaliliśmy Związek Radziecki i komunizm, no to straciliśmy wspólny fundament.
When we actually demolished communism and the Soviet Union, we had no longer one thing that was for us in common.
Zostały zostały liczniki i różne interesy.
All we were left with were different, varied interests.
Dlatego w pewnym momencie mówiłem, trzeba zwinąć sztandary Solidarności.
That's why at one point back then I said, let us roll up the banners of Solidarność.
Przewidując, że nie będzie możliwa Solidarność w innych warunkach.
Foreseeing very clearly that with the future development, Solidarność as such, solidarity as the movement would not prevail.
Wymyślicie wspólny fundament, który będzie łączył cały świat jak Solidarność kiedyś.
And I guess let's now find a shared denomination for the whole world that might unite as it united us with solidarity.
Jak wymyślicie, to powiedzcie mnie i znów stanę na czele.
If you find it, let me know, and then I will come to the lead.
So I'm going to encourage all of you to get your questions in. I know the team is bringing up some questions now. You talked about democracy in the United States and Poland, but we see all over the world that the world is taking a turn in another direction. And what is it going to take? How do you feel about the fragility of democracy and people sort of taking their rights and freedoms for granted?
Szanowni Państwo, ja miałem zawsze kłopot, jak zmierzyć demokrację, czy jest w jakimś państwie, czy jej nie ma.
Well, I have always had trouble assessing, evaluating whether there was a democracy in a country, in a given country or not.
Jako elektryk wymyśliłem wzór na demokrację.
And, you know, being a practical electrician, I have invented a formula that would allow to measure democracy.
Sprawdźcie, czy dobrze wymyśliłem.
And verify that was a good try.
Otóż demokrację podzieliłem na trzy części.
I have divided democracy as such into 3 pillars.
Po 30% każda.
Assigning 30% to each pillar.
A 10% dam na rozkosz.
And 10% for the errors and other things.
Pierwsze 30% to są konstytucje i prawa w każdym państwie zapisane.
The first 30% evaluates constitution, legislature in a country, legal solutions.
Dobre albo złe, ale 30%.
And, you know, whether good or bad, but if the legislative system is, that accounts for 30% of democracy.
Drugie 30%, czy ludzie to korzystają z tego, czy się organizują, czy chodzą na wybory.
The second 30% portion measures whether people really take advantage of democracy, whether they participate in the election, whether they vote.
I trzecie 30% grubość książeczki czekowej w skali masowej.
And the third pillar, the third 30%, is the size of the bank account of all individuals in society.
Bo jeśli chcecie poprawiać demokrację albo zastanawiać się, to musicie wiedzieć, który element bierzecie pod uwagę.
So if you want to reform democracy, you need to identify which of the 3 really requires the reform.
Czy prawa,
Whether the legislative
czy
system,
zachowanie społeczne,
or whether people and their acts,
czy że nie stać ich na wolność, boją się wszystkiego.
or whether people cannot afford democracy simply because they fear different ways.
I teraz zmierzmy demokrację w moim kraju.
So using this formula, let us measure democracy in my country.
Tym wzorem. 31 jeszcze mamy.
I would say that we still have the first 30% in place.
Drugie 30% jest problem, bo około 50% ludzi chodzi na wybory.
And as for the second pillar, I would estimate it, assess it at half of the 30%, because only 50% turnout in the election, that accounts for 15% of democracy.
A więc 30% i 15, 45.
Which means 30% and 15, 45%.
A grubość książeczki w Polsce 5% ludzi tylko może się postawić, może walczyć.
And as for the bank account and the size of it, I would estimate that only 5% of the society is wealthy enough to protest and to oppose and to really be active.
A więc w Polsce praktycznie demokracja jest około 50%,
So I would evaluate that we have about 50% of practical democracy in Poland.
I dlatego takie patrzenie praktyczne mówi o stanie w każdym kraju.
And I think you can really judge like this the quality of democracy or the size of democracy in every country. A dlaczego krucha demokracja?
Poprawcie ten mój przykład albo stosujcie.
So either improve my formula for measuring democracy or apply it yourself.
So, so we're going to switch to some questions, and we have questions coming in from both the live stream from around the US and from the room. I'm going to start with a live stream question. What advice would you give President Zelensky right now?
Jakiej rady by pan udzielił prezydentowi Żeleńskiemu w tej chwili?
Próbowałem mu mocno pomóc, ale nie zrozumiał mojej inicjatywy.
Well, I already tried to help him a lot, but I don't think he understood my initiative and my projects.
Na początku jego walki zgłosiłem się z pomysłem, że jestem gotów natychmiast jechać na Ukrainę.
When the war started, I immediately contacted him saying that I was ready to travel to Ukraine straight away.
Ale to był pomysł, abyśmy zbudowali międzynarodowe różne grupy.
And I was also suggesting that we should organize international groups to advocate for Ukraine.
Grupy na przykład noblistów,
Like, for example, Nobel Peace Prize-winners,
generałów,
or maybe generals,
jakichś profesorów od ekonomii, od innych
or maybe
rzeczy.
economic professors as another group.
Abyśmy w tych różnych grupach solidarnie pomagali Ukrainie.
To help advocate for Ukraine within those groups internationally.
Ale nie podchwycił mojej inicjatywy.
Well, he did not really react to this project straight away.
Pozostałem na bezrobociu i dlatego przyjechałem do was.
So I was left idle, and that's why I come over to the United States to do some work.
Jak najbardziej trudne pytania zadajcie mi.
And obviously, please ask me challenging questions.
Bo ja jestem już stary, zasypiam przy łatwych.
Quite simply because I'm a growing old man, and if the questions are too easy, I tend to fall asleep.
Przy trudnych,
I don't want you to fall asleep.
Nie chcę, żeby pan zasnął, oczywiście, że
przy
nie
trudnych
chcę.
budzę się.
And if the question is really challenging, then it makes me alert.
A jednocześnie chcę razem z wami znaleźć mądre odpowiedzi.
And at the same time, I want to really use your contribution to find good answer to tough questions.
Ja je przywłaszczę, idę na następną salę i popisuję się, jaki mądry jestem.
I'll take them as mine, and when I have another public I meet with, I can brag that it was my idea.
Więc proszę o trudności.
So please ask some.
Well, I have a
challenging
whole bunch of
questions.
questions here, but let me ask you,
Ale zapytam jedną rzecz.
what would be the most challenging question that I could ask you?
Już mówię, tylko sama się roześmiałam. Jakie by było najtrudniejsze pytanie, jakie mogłam panu zadać?
Nie znam takiego.
I don't know such a question.
Zawsze jest jakaś odpowiedź mądra, mniej mądra, ale jaka jest.
There is always an answer. Maybe not a good answer, not a very wise answer, but there's always an answer.
Ja już bywałem w takich sytuacjach różnych, że prawie
I
wszystkie
have
pytania.
experienced so many different situations and so many different questions.
A mój kraj jest tak doświadczony w tamtym miejscu geograficznym.
And on top of it, you know, I really share the experience of my poor country, who with its geographical location really has suffered a lot.
Polskę trenowali i Rosjanie, i Niemcy, i jeszcze Szwedzi.
Poland was really a training ground for both the Germans and the Russians and the Swedes.
Jak wiecie, że to są turystyczne, militarne narody.
And there's particularly the Germans and the Russians enjoy military socializing.
Oni w historii się odwiedzali nawzajem.
They would visit and revisit one another.
No i ponieważ nie było samolotów, nie było rakiet, to konikami przez Polskę przejeżdżali.
And back then, as there were no planes, using horse carriages, they would take the shortest way, which was across Poland.
I robiliście wielką Amerykę, interesy, a my musieliśmy czuwać, z której strony wejdą.
You were working here and shaping a beautiful country that the United States is, doing businesses here, and we had to keep alert, watching from which side they would enter our country again.
I stąd mieliście Kościuszkę, Popławskiego, Wałęsę teraz.
That's why there has been both Kościuszko, Pułaski, and now Wałęsa.
Z tego trenowania.
Because we have been really experiencing them using Poland as the training
I
ground.
narzucali nam systemy.
And they imposed political systems on us.
Poznaliście Polaków. Tu wiecie, że gdzie dwóch Polaków, to 3 partie polityczne.
I guess you know some Polish people, and I'm sure that you do realize that whenever two Polish people meet, they will always establish at least 3 political parties between the two.
A tam narzucili jedną, no.
And here we were with the Soviets. We had a monoparty system imposed.
Stalinowi, jak się udało, to opowiadał to o tym, mówi, że ten system komunistyczny na Polakach się leży jak końskie siodło na świnie założone.
And Stalin, when he had succeeded in imposing this monoparty system on Poland, thought himself it was funny. He would say that communism fitted Poland like a horse saddle put on a pig.
I 50 lat musieliśmy chodzić w tym siodle.
And we had to carry that horse saddle on our
Więc
back.
pomóżcie nam wreszcie zrobić porządek z Rosją.
So help us give the final blow to Russia.
Będziecie mieli następnych Kościuszków, Wałęsów.
Or you will have new Kościuszko and another Wałęsa and other exiles.
So and another challenging question, or maybe just something a little bit different. So what keeps you up at night? What is the thing that you worry about the most? You know, when I know that there's a lot going on in the world today, but what's the single thing that you worry about more than anything else?
Co na przykład nie pozwala panu spać w nocy? Wiem, że jest dużo niepokojów na świecie, ale o jedną rzecz niech pan wymieni.
Mamy wreszcie, los nam dał szansę uporządkować trochę świat.
I think we have been provided with the opportunity to finally put the right order in the world.
Ale dał to zadanie nie Polsce, Polsce walce dał zadania, ale uporządkowanie dało Ameryce i w Europie Niemcom.
And Providence gave Poland her task when it was when destruction was involved, demolishing of the old system. But now putting the new system into the world is not really, cannot be addressed by Poland itself. It's been given to bigger powers.
Na razie wasz prezydent idzie w tym kierunku. Może mu się uda.
Bigger powers like the United States. For the moment, your president has been heading in the right direction and hopefully
Wtedy, kiedy
he
walczyłem, to
succeeds.
też Ameryka nie tak bardzo chciała nam wejść.
When I was involved in my struggle, the Americans were not really very eager to assist us.
Przyjeżdżałem do was na początku jako związkowiec.
I remember visiting the United States still as a union activist.
Prosiłem, dajcie mi waszych generałów.
And I would be begging, please give me your generals.
General Motors, General Electric.
I mean General Motors, General Electric.
No, a wy nie daliście mi tego.
And they didn't come in straight away.
Przez to
Unfortunately.
przegrałem wybory.
That's why I lost my re-election
Bo nie
bid,
miałem, dużych interesów ekonomicznych.
because I didn't have that economic background. I wasn't successful economically in Poland.
Kiedyś w tamtym czasie się zdenerwowałem na Amerykę.
Back then, I was really annoyed with the United States at one point.
Mówię tak, wypowiem im wojnę, poddam się szybko, będą musieli mi zrobić porządek.
And I had this idea that I would declare a war on the United States, surrender quickly, and then the United States would be obliged to do something about Poland.
Ale nie zdążyłem, no.
But I didn't have time to do that. A jedna rzecz, która pana martwi?
Znaczy nie. Martwi mnie, że jak zachęcić was do dzieła.
And if I were to mention one thing that worries me is that I don't really know how to encourage the United States to act as I think it should be acting.
Znaleźliśmy się między epokami.
We have found ourselves between two eras.
Epoka podziałów na bloki, na państwo, na granicę upadła.
That era of divisions into antagonistic blocs, into separate countries collapsed.
Ale upadła dlatego, że cywilizację zbudowaliśmy, że nie mieści się w tych państewkach.
It collapsed also because our civilization has advanced so much that it can no longer be, we no longer can be confined to small countries only.
Jak nasi pradziadowie wymyślili rower i trochę technologii, to zrobili państwa, kraje z różnych osad.
When our forefathers invented the bike and they could move fast, out of villages and settlements, they established countries.
My w międzyczasie wymyśliliśmy samoloty, internety i różne bariery. Musimy do tego powiększyć struktury, tak jak oni dla roweru.
Since then, we have invented the internet, airplanes, and other gadgets. And, you know, we're so big that we have to organize ourselves in larger modules.
Ale ktoś musi tą nową epokę prowadzić.
But someone needs to be the leader in this new era.
Dla mnie, dla rewolucjonisty jest brak odpowiedzi na 3 wielkie tematy, pytania.
I, as a revolutionary, see that we do not have answers to 3 basic questions.
Pierwsze pytanie, jaki fundament zaproponujemy pod te nowe czasy, pod tą nową epokę?
The first question is, we are heading for this new era, but what should be its foundation?
Każdy kraj, każde państwo ma swój fundament, nawet swoją religię.
Every country, every state has its own foundation, even their respective religions.
Różnica w rozwoju.
There are great disproportions in economic development.
Kiedy tak stawiam problem, pojawiają się 2 koncepcje fundamentu.
So when I pose such a question, I would say that the public kind of divide themselves into half.
Połowa świata chce budować na wolnościach, wolnym rynku i prawie.
Half of the world wants to use as our foundations freedoms, liberties, free market, and legal solutions.
A druga połowa mówi niedobry pomysł.
And the remaining half claims no, that will not lead us anywhere.
Najpierw musimy opracować wolności.
First, we have to really reach a consensus on the values.
Takie 10 laickich przykazań.
And values and principles that I would refer to as a kind of secular 10 commandments.
A więc wartości dopiero wolny rynek, prawo.
And only once we have agreed on the values, only then can we put free market on top of it and the legislation.
Nie możemy wyskoczyć z tego podziału.
And for the moment, we cannot reach a consensus between the two halves.
Jak nam się to uda, będzie drugi problem.
Once we agree which way to move around, or move ahead, should I say, there will be another question that requires an answer.
A jaki system ekonomiczny pod tą nową epokę?
What should serve as an effective economic system in this new era?
Na pewno nie komunizm.
Certainly communism is out of question.
Ale nie dlatego dobry, niedobry, nie sprawdził się.
Not because we would judge it as bad or good, but simply it has proven totally
To jest
ineffective.
wyrzucamy.
So communism is out.
Ale też nie taki kapitalizm, jak dziś jest.
But on the other hand, the capitalism that we have in place today is not appropriate for the new era either.
Ten kapitalizm był dobry na bloki, na państwa, na kraje.
This capitalism in its format today was effective when we were divided into antagonistic blocs, when we lived within our countries only.
Ktoś nazwał wyścig szczurów między państwami, kto kogo za ile.
And some referred to that as a rat's race. So one country tried to outdo the other, trying to get ahead of the other.
Przy tym ściganiu wielu ludzi nie wytrzymywało tempa i odpadało na bezrobocie.
And during that race, many people were left behind. They couldn't keep up the pace and they became jobless.
Kiedy dziś nie ścigamy się, robimy większe zorganizowanie, musimy pozbierać bezrobotnych i do roboty zagonić.
And now, when we no longer race one against the other, and we integrate ourselves into bigger groups, bigger structures, we need to find those jobless people, give them work and make them work.
A więc w kapitalizmie wolny rynek zostaje, wszystko inne trzeba trochę skorygować.
So in reply to my second question, I think as for capitalism, we would leave the free market economy, but everything else that constitutes capitalism as such needs to be reformed.
Pozostaje trzeci problem wielki.
But then the third big issue arises.
Jak poradzić sobie z demagogią, populizmem i oszustwami polityków w skali tej większej?
How to overcome demagoguery, populism, and politicians who cheat on their constituencies.
Przy pamiętaniu o tym, że do końca XX wieku to tak po cichu każdy naród miał jakiegoś Pana Boga.
Also bearing in mind that until the end of the 20th century, every nation, every society, officially or not officially, feared a god.
Odrzuciliśmy to.
Now, God has been rejected in majority of societies.
Baliśmy się Sowietów i komunizmu.
We also had some fears of the Soviets, of communism.
Odrzuciliśmy to.
Communism and the Soviet Union exist no longer.
Jak utrzymać narody, kiedy żadnych hamulcy nie ma?
So how to really control masses of people if they have no reins whatsoever?
Wszystkie dziś partie polityczne i inne organizacje nie pasują do dzisiejszych czasów.
And nothing from the old world is appropriate or fits in the new one. I mean, even political parties.
Patrzcie na dzisiejsze partie, szczególnie w Europie. Lewicowe są bardziej prawicowe od prawicowych i odwrotnie.
If you look on the example of Europe, maybe not it's not so visible here, but if you look at Europe, the left-wing parties are more rightist than the rightist parties and vice versa.
A popatrzcie na partie chrześcijańskie.
And if you ask yourself a question about Christian parties,
Ani jednego wierzącego nie mają.
you will hardly find a single believer among them.
A więc to wszystko nie pasuje na te czasy. Kiedyś pasowało.
Which just goes to say that everything in today's world needs to be redefined.
Tylko jedną strukturę mamy w świecie jako taką.
And I think there is only one structure that can be continues being effective in the world.
Przepisy o ruchu drogowym.
That is traffic regulations.
A tak to świat wygląda, jakbyśmy zdjęli znaki i przepisy z ulicy. Wyobraźcie sobie, co by było.
And everything else throughout the world, all the institutions and structures resemble a situation where there are no traffic regulations and we need to be driving without them. So can you imagine the chaos?
A więc krótko mówiąc, epoka podziałów państw blok upadła.
So briefly speaking, the era of divisions and has collapsed.
Pojawiła się epoka intelektu, informacji, globalizacji.
The new era of information, intellect and globalization has appeared.
A nasze pokolenie zostało pośrodku.
And we have been left behind in between the two.
Jedno padło, drugie nie powstało.
One has collapsed and the new thing has
I ja
not
ten
emerged
czas jako
as yet.
rewolucjonista nazywam epoka słowa, dyskusji, jak ten świat ma wyglądać.
And this is the time that I refer to as the era of the words, the debate. What should be the shape of the new world?
Jaka rola Stanów Zjednoczonych?
What should be the role of the United States?
Do końca XX wieku było prosto.
Until the end of the 20th century, things were simple.
Stany Zjednoczone były imperium dobra.
The United States was the good empire.
W Sowiecie i komuniści imperium zła.
The Soviets, the communists were the evil empire.
Jeśli odpadło imperium zła, no to jaka rola Stanów?
Now there is no longer, the evil empire is no longer there. We have to redefine the role of the United
Trzeba na
States.
nowo zdefiniować.
We have to redefine it.
Świat potrzebuje Stanów jako przywództwo,
And the world needs the United States as the leader.
ale nowe, no bo nie po starym stylu.
leadership of a new format, not
Więc
the old style format.
Nie dolary, nie
leadership.
dolary, nie robienie za innych roboty.
Not providing the world with your dollars, your money, and not doing the work for the others,
Tylko organizować do zadań.
but organizing people to fulfill their tasks.
Dziś zorganizować świat do walki z Rosją.
Today, organize the world to fight against Russia.
Jutro porządki z Chinami.
Tomorrow, organize the world to put a good order in China.
30 lat temu zgłaszałem propozycję u was.
30 years ago, I proposed here in the United States,
Pomóżcie mi zbudować ze wszystkich państw w Europie Stany Zjednoczone Europy.
help me establish the United States of Europe of all the European countries.
Ponieważ mój pomysł to zostanę prezydentem tam.
Of course, it was my idea, so I was hoping to become president of that entity.
Potem szybko sfederuję to ze Stanami Zjednoczonymi.
I would later federate the United States of Europe with the United States of America.
Znów prezydentem zostanę, bo to mój pomysł.
Since it was my idea, I would be the president of that bigger entity.
Wtedy poprosimy do stołu Chiny i pogadamy o globalizacji.
And then we would ask China to sit at a table with us and discuss globalization.
No ale nie pomogliście mi to zrealizować.
But you didn't help me implement that idea. Pozwoli pan mi zrobić?
So I
Za dużo
sitting here
mówię.
with
I've been
the
talking too much.
no, not at all. Sitting
Yeah,
here with the next
absolutely not.
president of the United States of Europe, maybe the United States of the entire world.
Może Stan Zjednoczony całego świata, panie prezydencie.
Nie. Świat musi iść w kierunku globalizacji.
Nie, no bo pan powiedział, że
Ja.
tak.
Musi, dlatego że mamy, może inaczej. Dziś Stany powinny zorganizować gdzieś około 50 mądrych ludzi.
The leadership in the new format of the United States would be bring some dozen people together,
Posadzić przy okrągłym stole.
put them at a round table,
Powiedzieć, mądrzy ludzie,
and ask the wise people who
Zrób-
would be sitting there.
zróbcie mi listę tematów, które nie mieszczą się w państewkach.
Identify the issues that cannot be handled, addressed by countries alone.
Na przykład ta pandemia się nie mieści,
For example, things like the COVID pandemic,
migracja.
migrations, refugee crisis.
Jak zrobicie taką listę, to potem podzielcie te, które możemy zostawić w kontynentach, a które już globalnie.
And once this list is prepared, just identify which issues can be addressed continentally and which have to be addressed globally.
Jak to zrobicie, to wtedy zastanówcie się, jakie potrzebne są struktury, jakie pieniądze, aby to zrealizować, aby się przygotować.
Once this is done, invent what institutions, what organizations can really handle these issues, how they should be structured, how they should be organized in order to address these issues continentally, globally.
Następna pandemia, jak nas dopadnie, to nie przeżyjemy.
And if we fail to do that, the next pandemic that may happen will kill us all.
A jak otworzymy Chiny i Indię, to nie przeżyjemy migracji.
And if we allow for people from China and India to be leaving their country, we shall not survive the next refugee crisis.
A to musi nastąpić.
And these are inevitable to happen.
Jestem całkowicie pewny, że to nastąpi.
I'm quite certain these things will happen.
A my w ogóle nie przygotowani.
Whereas we are totally unprepared.
Kto ma to zrobić?
And who should prepare us?
Ja już jestem za stary.
I am too old myself.
No weźcie, zróbcie, zajmijcie się światem.
Please, try to deal with the world.
A ja będę z góry patrzył, czy wam się dobrze wiedzie.
And I will be looking from up there whether you have been successful doing that.
I
So
co
is
pani
the-
teraz zrobi? No?
So what would you do now?
So is there a leader, a global leader? I know that you've advocated a lot for the US sort of reclaiming its leadership in the world in a different way.
Czy jest taki
But are there
moment,
any other leaders around the world that
Uh,
have that kind of leadership spirit that you displayed, that you are an example of?
czy jest w tej chwili jakiś lider na świecie? Ja wiem, że mówi Pan dużo o Stanach
Proszę.
Zjednoczonych, które odzyskują swoją
Ja.
pozycję przywódczą, ale czy jest jakiś inny lider, taki Han byłby przywódcą, który mógłby się tego podjąć?
Proszę panią,
Changing the world takes
gdybym ja
courage, right?
dzisiaj miał,
Zmiana świata.
gdybym
podlega
miał wasze możliwości,
If I had your opportunities,
wasze wykształcenie,
your educational background,
wasze dolary,
your money,
to ja bym miał 10 Noblów.
I would be now having 10 Nobel Prizes.
A ja elektryk.
And there I was, a simple electrician,
Patrzcie, do was przemawiam.
a simple electrician, but here I am speaking to you.
A tylko dlatego, że uwierzyłem w to.
And I'm in this position only because I believed
A więc ilu tu ja przywódców widzę?
in what I was doing. So talking about potential leaders, there's so many among yourselves.
To jak was zachęcić? Macie takie możliwości.
The only thing is how to encourage you to become ones. You have such a potential.
Weźcie przykład ze mnie.
Just follow my example.
Elektryk, duża rodzina.
An electrician, many children in the
I za
family.
moją postawę dostałem 3 profesury honorowe.
And I ended up with 4 honorary professor titles,
Dziesiątki doktoratów,
dozens of honorary doctoral degrees,
a medali,
and as for medals
odznaczeń.
and honors,
Czy pamiętacie Breżniewa?
I wonder whether any one of you remembers the picture of Leonid
On miał
Brezhnev.
cały jakiet z przodu zabudowany.
He had a jacket full of medals,
A ja mam 50 razy więcej.
and I would claim I have 50 times as many.
Nie mogę założyć, mam założyć, aby dźwigu, żeby mnie podniósł.
I can't put them all on because I would need a crane to be lifted from my chair.
I co, warto było?
So was it all worthwhile?
No idźcie w moje ślady.
Why don't you follow in my footsteps?
So I know our former senator from the state of Connecticut, Chris Dodd, is someone you know as well. And you two have toured together, and I think the words that he said are the words that you say, is that every single person on this earth has the ability to change the world, just like you did. And we have young people in the audience, and I know that your words will ring true, that all of you can certainly change the world.
Dodatkowo, gdybym miał taką urodę jak pani, proszę panią.
And if I had your good looks,
So I know.
Można,
No, no one ever leaves me
można politykę luźno uprawiać? Można, a
you can be
tematy
doing
poważne.
politics in a light-mannered way, can't you?
Indeed.
To prawda.
So I know we're slowly running out of time, and that you have, such a busy schedule here in the US. But before we leave, the world is really complicated right now, living in a COVID world, watching what's happening in Ukraine. It's, sometimes very hard to be a human being right now. So what do you want everyone to leave? What kind of hope is there for all of us? What is the thing you want to leave us with the most?
Jakie przesłanie na koniec, na rozejście chce pan powiedzieć? Jaką nadzieję pan nam daje?
Dla mnie wcale nie jest trudne i dość czytelne.
Well, actually, I don't see it all that confusing or complicated. It's quite clear cut.
Tylko pozostały 2 koncepcje świata.
As long as we realize that there are 2 concepts of the world.
Ta koncepcja, która mówimy o pokoju, o budowaniu, o wolnościach.
The first one, which speaks of peace, of liberties, freedoms.
I to jest jedna koncepcja, którą my hołdujemy.
And this is the concept of the world that we all advocate for.
I pozostałość starej koncepcji Rosja i trochę Chiny.
And we have the remnants of the old concept of the world represented by Russia and China.
Z tych dużych sił.
I mean, of the bigger powers.
I
of
teraz
course,
dla mnie jest
of
pytanie,
bigger forces.
czy
I would
będziemy solidarni, zwycięży ta nowa epoka, nowe czasy, czy jednak oddamy starym
So
zwyciężyć?
the question to me now is whether we really stay united strongly enough for this new concept of the world to prevail, or whether we fail to do that and the old manner of the world will prevail.
I jest drugie pytanie, ile sobie guzów nabijemy, ile krwi upuścimy, by iść właściwą, mądrą drogą.
And another question is how many more blows do we need to get? How many more bruises do we need to get in order to realize that the good way is the one to follow?
Mamy największą szansę na pokój, na rozwój w sztafecie pokoleń naszych.
And I think in this relay of generations, we are really faced with the biggest ever opportunity to enjoy peace and well-being.
I wcale nie to jest nietrudne i możemy tego dokonać.
And it's not all that challenging to do. We can accomplish it.
Bo potrzebujemy przywództwa światowego Stanów Zjednoczonych,
As long as we have the leadership of the United States in the world,
w Europie Niemiec,
of Germany in Europe,
by zorganizowały pracę i tematy, które przed nami stanęły.
to organize the world to address the issues and the challenges with which we are
Czy
faced.
to jest dużo?
Is this a lot to ask for?
I ja głęboko wierzę, że jesteśmy przygotowani i możemy tego dokonać.
I am confident that we are prepared to do it and that we can accomplish it.
Oczywiście niektórzy odsyłają mnie do YouTube w internecie.
Well, some people watch YouTube films
Zobaczcie, tam są ładne filmy.
online. I guess some of you may see
I mówią,
that there are
są
pretty films there available.
piramidy egipskie
And those people in the films claim, well, look at the
i wiele
pyramids.
rozwiązań, które były już wyżej niż my mamy w obecnej cywilizacji.
And many other civilizational accomplishments from the past, far more advanced than today's current civilization.
I ktoś to zniszczył.
And still they were destroyed by some forces.
My dochodzimy do momentu zniszczenia.
So our civilization is really reaching the point at which it can be destroyed too.
I czy poradzimy sobie z tym, czy nie poradzimy?
Will we be able to move beyond this point, avoiding the
Jak nie
destruction?
poradzimy, to 1000 lat nie będzie życia na tej ziemi.
If we fail to do that, there will be millennia with no life on this globe,
Przyszlą nam Adama i Ewę i od nowa zaczniemy.
and new Adam and Eve will be sent over, and we will start again.
I jako rewolucjonista i taką koncepcję muszę widzieć.
As a revolutionary, I also realize that some people think along these lines too.
Dziękuję Państwu.
Thank you very much.
Jeśli Pani chce kończyć.
If you want to be finishing right now.
Dziękuję.
Thank you, and thank you for being a force for good.
Dziękujemy panu bardzo, że pan był z nami dzisiaj.